Erik Halterman of Rotowire here with 6 players to pick up this weekend, starting with Alex Cobb. Since the start of the 2021 season, he's got a 3.79 ERA, although his xFIP is about a half a run better than that. Cobb has an elite ground ball rate over that stretch of 58%, combined with strikeout and walk rates that are both a hair better than league average. If you compare his numbers to Logan Webb's career numbers, you get basically the exact same ground ball rate, with a little bit more strikeouts and a little bit more walks as well. Cobb is no longer teammates with Logan Webb because he was acquired by the Guardians at the deadline, and he should be ready to go quite soon. He's got maybe one more rehab start. He's been out all year with hip and shoulder issues, but he's got 24 strikeouts against 7 walks in his 6 rehab starts. Sure looks ready to go. Should have plenty of chances at wins down the stretch while pitching for the team with the best record in baseball. Up next is Hayden Birdsong, who is temporarily down in the minors with the Giants, but should spend the last 2 months in the rotation, taking the spot that was vacated by Alex Cobb, who was again dealt to Cleveland. Birdsong is the 31st ranked prospect at Rotowire in the latest update just before the deadline, and the 5th best pitching prospect on that list. Through his first 6 major league starts, Birdsong has a 2.97 ERA, a 1.22 WHIP. Got a lot of strikeouts and a lot of walks, 30% strikeout rate against a 12% walk rate. And that was his profile in the minors as well. There, it was even more extreme on the strikeout side, a 35% strikeout rate to go with a 10% walk rate. So don't expect these strikeouts or the walks to disappear anytime soon, but hey, we'll take a lot of whiffs in fantasy, and we'll take a great pitcher's park in San Francisco as well. Another young pitching option is River Ryan of the Dodgers. He's the 84th ranked prospect at Rotowire, the 17th ranked pitcher. Ryan, through his first 2 major league starts this season, has allowed 1 earned run on just 6 hits, although 10 strikeouts against 6 walks in 11 innings isn't too special. Ryan is an older rookie. He turns 26 years old in 2 weeks, and he's an interesting story. He was actually a two-way player who was focused on hitting immediately after he was drafted, before the Dodgers traded for him, grabbed him from the division rival Padres prior to the 2022 season. Ryan lost 2 months at the start of this season due to shoulder issues, but if you look at his career minor league numbers, it's a 3.22 ERA, 29% strikeout rate, although he does have some control issues with a 10% walk rate. Ryan's got a broad repertoire. He's got a cutter, slider, curveball are all plus pitches. He just needs that command to hold. There's also the question about his role, but he's got the 5th starter spot for now, and once Walker Buehler returns from the injured list, it's definitely possible the Dodgers go with a 6-man rotation. They've got a whole bunch of injury-prone arms they'd probably like to protect leading up to the playoffs. Speaking of the Dodgers, they just dealt Miguel Vargas to the White Sox at the deadline in a 3-team trade, which also included the Cardinals. Vargas has a pretty good bat and not much glove, and that didn't add up to much more than a bench role with the Dodgers, but it should be good enough for an everyday role with the White Sox, just as Gavin Sheets, who basically fits that profile and has appeared in 400 games almost over the last 4 years, and Sheets might not even have the pretty good bat part. Vargas should have very minimal competition for playing time, so we should finally be able to see what he can do. What he's shown so far, pretty good plate discipline, strikeout and walk rates both a little bit better than league average, but just a 6% barrel rate, 32% hard hit rate. That's not great. Only 11 homers, 5 steals in 131 games. If you look at the prospect reports for Vargas, it was hit over power, but the power is supposed to be close enough to league average that the whole picture should still work. Still just 24 years old is Vargas, and he's only ever had sporadic playing time, so you could look at that as the reason why his major league numbers to date really are nothing special. So it's time to see what he can do with everyday at-bats over the final 2 months of the season. Speaking of everyday at-bats, Austin Hayes should be getting those now that he's been traded to Philadelphia, and it really wasn't his fault that he had lost his everyday role in Baltimore. Hayes has been a totally adequate, if unexciting, starting outfielder for several years. His last 4 years in Baltimore, his WRC plus finished somewhere between 102 and 112, all while playing solid defense as well. But he fell into the short side of a platoon for the Orioles due to the emergence of several young players, not due to his own underperformance. He could not have gotten much luckier at the deadline because he was dealt to a contender and one with a need in the outfield in Philadelphia. And the plan seems for him to be playing every day in left field, pushing Brandon Marsh and Johan Rojas into a platoon in center. Hayes also gets to trade a deep left field in Baltimore for the short perch at Citizens Bank Park, so could see more power from him than we've seen for most of his career as well. And finally, Ty France was DFA'd by the Mariners after posting a .662 OPS for the first 3+ months of the year, but he's getting nearly the best possible park upgrade around, leaving Seattle and getting traded to the Reds. The only way it could have been better is if he was traded to the Rockies instead. Now, France has had a multi-year downward trend in his numbers and never had elite power, topped out at 20 homers. This year, he's got a 24% strikeout rate, but typically he's around 15 to 18% in that category. He traded it for a career best barrel rate this year of 9%. That's not really an elite mark, wasn't really worth the extra whips. I'm not sure if we're going to see this version of France or something close to the version we saw the last few years, but the park change alone should keep him interesting as long as he just doesn't take another step back at the plate. And he should have an everyday role down the stretch with Christian Encarnacion Strand out for the year. For more names, check out the Saturday edition of the Rotowire Fantasy Baseball Podcast with me and Ryan Boyer.